Thanks for tuning in to the Oxygen Alliance YouTube channel, where we share the Concentrator Talk virtual meeting hosted every Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. Central African Time. In the talk, we discuss different aspects of oxygen concentrator assessment, use, and maintenance. And please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Oxygen Alliance Concentrator Talk. So slightly different change today. I'm joined by my colleague, Sharon Gozo, and you'll be seeing two faces today. So I hope this is going to work out pretty well. My name is Mwari Lungu, and Sharon Gozo, I've already introduced her. And we're also joined by our colleagues, Timothy Mtonga and Amakrit Rai in the background. For those of you that may not be aware, the Concentrator Talk is a virtual meeting that we host every Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. Central African Time. And this is where we discuss the different aspects of concentrator assessment, use, and maintenance. So if you have some issue with your concentrator that you'd like us to help you out with, then our technicians are always available to help you. So please make sure you send the questions to us in advance so that they can have a look at them and provide the best solutions to you. So on the technicians panel today, we have Paulina Mohofio and Masofa Mujaji joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa. We have Kuwinder Singh, who is joining us from Chandigarh, India. And we have Daphne Magela, Linda Mishoni, and Francis Sambani joining us from Lilongwe, Malawi. So as usual, we also have a topic of interest today, and we'll be discussing about how best to use an oxygen concentrator. So please be on the lookout for that. And in case you have some questions relating either to the questions we're discussing or a question that you experienced at your workshop, you can share it with us in the chat, and we'll either answer it during the call or we'll answer it during the next session if we do not have the time. So Sharon is going to pick up from here, and we'll now jump on to the questions.
Our first question says, hello, I'm working on a Long 5J5 oxygen concentrator. I switched the concentrator on, but there was no oxygen coming out on the outlet of the concentrator, even though the compressor was running. I disconnected the pipe from the valve block, which is connected to the exhaust port of the compressor on the other end, and there was air coming out of the compressor exhaust port. When I connected the pipe back to the valve block, I noticed that the leaf valve on the compressor was popping. What could be the cause of this problem, and how can I fix it? I'll ask Masofa to answer this one.
Thank you, Sharon. The cause of the problem you are facing could be that there is a blockage in the system. Firstly, you have to trace airflow starting from the compressor exhaust port up to the inlet side of the flow meter. Check for components that affect airflow, like solenoid valve, sieve base outlet, as well as checking the integrity of the circuit board. If you find out that there is no air coming out of the sieve base, then you have to check the integrity of the solenoid valve. To check the solenoid valve, switch off the concentrator and then remove the connector for the valve from the circuit board. Then use a multimeter to measure the resistance of the two valves. The resistance of the valve should be around 140 kilo ohms. If you get this resistance value on each valve, it means that the valves are in good shape. In addition, you should also check the two outlet ports of the solenoid valve that are connected to the sieve base to see if there is airflow from the valve to the sieve base. If there is no airflow, it means that the valves are not opening or they are blocked. The other thing you have to do is to check if the valves are receiving power from the control board. That is, if there is no airflow from the valve to the sieve beds. While the concentrator is switched on, use the multimeter to check if they are receiving any voltage. The voltage should be about 15 VAC. If the valves are receiving power, it means that the valves are faulty and you should replace them. The other component that get their power from the control circuit board are working, but there is no voltage at the point where the valves are connected on the PC board. Then the PC board is faulty. You should replace it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Masofa, for that explanation. So at the end of this question, we have a poll. I'll ask Amapri to launch this one.
Yes, I will do so. While I'm doing that, do you want to explain how to access the poll?
Yep. So if you are joining us using a mobile phone, then if you go to the bottom right of your screen, there's a menus option there. So if you click on the menus option, a window will open up where we have the activities button as one of the options listed. So if you click on the activities button, another window will open up, and the pause menu is one of the listed options there. So that's how you can get it to joining us from your laptop. Just go to the bottom right of your screen, and the icon on the far right is the activities button. So if you click on that, it opens up a window where the pause menu is one of the listed options.
Thank you for the explanation. So our first poll question is, have you ever replaced a solenoid valve block for a J5 oxygen concentrator? And we do have most of the votes in, and only one person was a yes. Everyone else has not. So this was a good question. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Amapri. Moving on to our next question. It says, I have seen several pure oxygen concentrators that came in our workshop with exploded capacitors. What is the cause? I'll ask Francis to answer this one.
Thank you, Sharon. So in the case of an oxygen concentrator, the causes for a capacitor to burst are twofold. In the first place, this may be due to factory defects. Despite manufacturers for electronic components having quality control checks, sometimes components with defects still make it into production. The second cause for capacitors bursting is the capacitor being supplied with a higher voltage than rated. There are two specifications for capacitors which are recommended for the OxyPure. The first specification is a capacitor rated at 10 microfarads with a tolerance of plus or minus 5%, and the second is a capacitor rated at 6 microfarads with a tolerance of plus or minus 5%. Please note that, however, that the compressors in this model of oxygen concentrators are rated at to use a 6 microfarad capacitor with a 1.2 amps current. In our case, the first model of capacitor is the one that bursts the most. As specified, the first model, which is rated at 10 microfarad with a tolerance of plus or minus 5%, stores a larger charge than what is desired by the compressor in the oxygen concentrator, which is 6 microfarad, and is consistently in an overloaded state, which contributes to it being damaged. The capacitor with the 6 microfarad is the right choice for the OxyPure oxygen concentrator. Yeah, so as we can see in our graphics, we have the 6 microfarad capacitor for the OxyPure. Yeah, coming this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, for that detailed explanation. So every time we are replacing a capacitor, let's make sure that we have the right capacitor for the compressors. Now moving forward to our next question. I'm a biomedical technician and I've been asked to conduct user training on oxygen concentrators at a certain private hospital. This will be my first time to conduct such an event. Can someone enlighten me on the topics that I should include in my presentation? I'll ask Linda to take this one up.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Not all breakdowns or malfunctions of an oxygen concentrator are a result of technical faults. Sometimes improper use of the equipment results in the malfunctioning. It is therefore important to ensure that users of these devices are trained in how to use them properly. User training is therefore very important. Once oxygen concentrators have been repaired or serviced, users should be trained on how to properly use the machines in order to reduce the downtime of the concentrators and increase their lifespan. So I commend your efforts in trying to conduct the user training. So the following are the important things you can add in your presentation. Apart from briefly explaining to the audience how a concentrator works, you have to inform them that they have to clean the cabinet filters once every week to prevent clogging of the filters with dust and other gross particles. Also, if they wash the filters, they should dry them before installing them back on the unit. In addition to that, explain to the audience that they should not use the concentrator without cabinet filters. They should install spare filters or a piece of gauze if they want to use the unit while cleaning the filters. Secondly, you can talk about the placement of your concentrators in the wards. The concentrators should be placed at least 30 centimeters away from the wall or any other thing on all sides of the concentrators when in use. This is because concentrators are supposed to be used in well-ventilated places for them to perform well and prevent overheating of the machine. You can also talk about how to use concentrators with dual flow meters. Some medical personnel do not understand how dual flow meter concentrators work. Therefore, explain to them that if they are using both flow meters, they should ensure that the sum of the flow rate they set on both flow meters should not exceed the maximum rated flow of the concentrator. For example, if they are using J10, the sum of the flow they set on both flow meters should not exceed 10 liters per minute. And still on the dual flow meter concentrators, you also have to let them know that if they are using one flow meter and the other one is not in use, they should make sure that the flow meter which is not in use is completely closed. This is very important, especially when the patient is being given oxygen therapy at maximum flow, for instance, 10 liters per minute. In this case, leaving the flow meter, which is not in use, open means that the concentrator will not be producing more than 10 liters. And because of this, the purity produced by the concentrator will drop and you'll be delivering less concentrated oxygen to the patient than prescribed. Furthermore, you can clarify on how to use splitters with oxygen concentrators. And finally, you can talk about the humidifier bottles, which are the accessories used on the concentrators. Explain to your audience the use of the humidifier bottles and also explain the following about humidifier bottles. The first thing, the bottles should be cleaned thoroughly once every week and also after every patient. After cleaning the bottle, it should be left to air dry before use. And also they should clean and refill the bottle with distilled water every day. And finally, they should take note of the labeling on the bottles whenever they are refilling the humidifier bottles. The level of the water in the bottle should never be below the minimum level marking on the bottle and also should not go beyond the maximum level marking. Thank you, Sharon.
much, Linda. Detailed explanation. Maybe before we proceed, any comments?
No.
So to just add on the explanation, it's really important to know how to use a concentrator. For example, if you're using a concentrator, make sure that if it's in the ward, there's nothing closer to it that will be obstructing the airflow into the concentrator, so that the air exchange inside the concentrator and even outside has to be.
Maybe just to add on to that, I remember we had a situation one time when we went, one of our teams went to the fields. We found a concentrator that was placed on the cushion foam that comes with the packaging of the concentrator. And the thing was still, the concentrator was still sitting on the cushion, and the cushion was blocking the air outlets of the concentrator. So for the users, they were thinking that they are taking care of the equipment, especially when the cleaners are cleaning around the mop. They didn't want water to get to the concentrator, which was a good thing. But then they blocked the air outlets, so they didn't know that they were also killing the concentrator. So I think it's very important to make sure that we train these users how best to take care of the machines.
Thank you, Maui. So moving forward, we have a poll at the end of this question. I'll ask Amapri to launch this one.
Yes, so this poll question is, have you ever conducted user training before? And we'll give everyone a few seconds to answer this question, but I think one of our goals with members of the Auction Alliance is to start getting more involved on user training, especially in hospitals, because there is a few things that if user training is done right, the life of a concentrator will last for much, much longer. And it looks like we've got a lot of answers in, and most of them are on no. So we encourage you all as biomedical experts to get more involved on user training, and we're happy to talk with you about what that looks like. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Amapri. Now we move on to our next question. The question says, we have recently received one platinum 9 oxygen concentrator from Invacare. It is working fine at higher settings, giving a period of 95% at setting 9. The pressure outlet is also 9 psi at now we land the concentrator below 2 liters per minute, and it is giving a low purity alarm. Such problems at
Thanks, Sharon. Yes, it is correct. We generally face the problem of low purity at high levels. And the concentrators continue to give good purity levels at lower settings also. As stated in the question, giving 90%, 95% pure oxygen at setting 9 and pressure output is also okay. It means the compressor, seabeds, and four-way valve are working properly. This type of problem related to PE valve, that is pressure equalizer valve, or the PC board. So please follow the steps below to diagnose the problem. So firstly, open the cabinet of platinum 9 oxygen concentrator using a star screwdriver, removing 4 screws, 2 on the front and 2 on the rear. So locate the PC board mounted on the top cover of the platinum 9 below that switch of the oxygen concentrator. Now power the concentrator on. So as we can see in the graphics, also the PC board is there. So then we have to press the timing calibration button on the PCB simultaneously as the button is shown on the graphics. So we have to press the power on button and the reset button simultaneously, both at the same time. So then what will happen? The green and red light will start blinking on the panel slowly, and we have to wait for 2 hours till the calibration is done. Indication for the calibration done is the red and the green LED. Speeds blinking will be fast than in the starting. Now switch off the machine and switch it on again after 2 minutes and check the purity at minimum and maximum flow. If found okay, then use the machine. In case the problem persists in the machine, then a PE valve need to be replaced. So the PE valve is connected between the C beds. So PE valve you can see in the graphics also. So same process of calibration has to be done if the PE valve is replaced in the machine. So that is the process for to solve this problem in the low settings, low purity alarm. Thank you.
Winda, I believe that helps solve the problem. Now moving forward to our next question. A few days ago, I was conducting ppm on oxygen concentrators of different models. I then came across 2 Longfian J5 oxygen concentrators. When I removed the covers of the metal casing that encloses the compressor in both concentrators, I noticed that the compressor was tied to the base of the unit using a cable tie, and I did not see this cable tie in other concentrator models. Can someone explain to me if the cable tie around the compressor in J5 has any special function? I'll ask Paulina to take this one.
Thank you, Sharon, for the question. The cable tie you found in a J5 concentrator tied around the compressor does not have any special function during the use of the concentrator. The main function for which the manufacturer placed the cable tie around the compressor is to restrict the movement of the compressor during shipping or transportation of the concentrator. This cable tie is not found in other concentrator model, possibly because they have long shock absorbers. They have strong shock absorbers. As such, the compressor in these models do not move a lot. It is recommended that once the concentrator has been commissioned for use, this cable tie should be removed. This is because when the unit is in use, it produces some vibrations, which causes the cable tie to be rubbing against the compressor, thereby damaging the specification sticker on the compressor. Once the sticker on the compressor is destroyed, you will have problems in future, especially when you want to service the compressor. Since the cable tie would have damaged the specification sticker, you may have trouble identifying the model for you to use the right service kit. In addition, in cases where the compressor is damaged and it needs replacement, you will have problems in identifying the compressor model as well as its power ratings. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Paulina. So to my fellow technicians, if you're fixing a compressor that has a cable tie, if by any chance you remove the cable tie, make sure that you replace it back when closing up the concentrator. So at the end of this question, we have a poll. I'll ask Amapli to launch the poll.
Thank you, Sharon. Our next poll question is, did you know the purpose of the cable tie which is tied around the compressor in the J5 concentrator before now? I can certainly say that I did not know what it was for. And it looks like all of our votes so far are mostly for no as well. Okay, Sharon, back to you.
Thank you, Amapli. I think we have learned the use of the cable tie.
Yeah, I've only came across this once also. So of course I knew about it after I had encountered that concentrator, but you would think that it's there to keep the concentrator down, but then, yeah, that's mostly for transportation. So it's very important to make sure that we remove that cable tie once we start using our machine.
Okay, moving forward to our next question. The question says, I was working on a DeVille Bliss 525, which had a low oxygen purity level. The oxygen concentrator had no leakages in the tubing. I then tried refilling the belt, and when I checked, the purity level was still very low. After that, I tried checking the control board, and surprisingly, there was a leakage on the oxygen sensor on the ends where we have O-rings. How do I fix it? I'll ask Linda to answer this one.
Thank you once again, Sharon. It is hard to get maximum oxygen purity when we have such leakages on the machine. So to solve your problem, we have to remove the 4 screws on the top part of the board using Torx screwdriver number 10. And the sensor is soldered with 4 pins to the board. So you have to hit those 4 pins one at a time using the soldering iron. And then use the solder pump to remove the melted solder so that the pins are loosened for easy removal of the board, the sensor from the board. So in the graphics, those are 4 pins. The picture on the left shows the 4 screws that you use Torx key number 10, and then the other image is just showing the pins that you have to remove by desoldering. And then since you have disassembled the sensor, you can now replace the O-ring with the new one, and then reassemble the parts and making sure that you do not leave room for leakages. So this is just the way you can do the faulty O-ring that is allowing air to escape. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda, for that explanation. We have a poll at the end of this question. I'll ask Amapri to launch this one.
Thanks, Sharon. Our first poll question is, have you ever worked on a DeVille Bliss board before? And we'll give everyone a little time to go through this, as we actually have 2 poll questions on this question. Okay, it looks like a real 50-50 on the split. Some people have and some people have not. And now let's go to our second question, which is, do you have access to get the new O-ring? So I think this is an important question from our side, as we are trying to make more parts and filters and everything else you need for all oxygen concentrators available for the servicing work. And certainly there are some no's on this answer. So if you do need access to parts, you can always send us an email and we will do what we can to assist you. And with that, we'll send it back to you, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Amapri. So reaching this far, we'll take a slight diversion to our today's topic of interest, where we'll be talking about how to take care of oxygen concentrators. So over to you, Daphne.
Thank you, Sharon. So, as Sharon said, the topic of interest today is how to take care of an oxygen concentrator. So, whether an oxygen concentrator is in use or not, it loses value over time. Several things, including wear and tear and accumulation of dirt, Rain, sun, and moisture can contribute to this. Therefore, we must inspect and clean the equipment in a systematic manner in order to extend its lifespan. There are different roles and responsibilities that can be done when taking care of an oxygen concentrator. So different people or users, I should say, have different roles. For example, users or technicians. So the users could be nurses, doctors, clinicians, yeah, or people who use battery powered concentrators for portability and they have them on their own. So the first person whose role we're going to talk about is the user. For example, the nurses, clinicians, and doctors. So firstly, they must ensure that equipment is installed in the right place for an oxygen concentrator. The requirement for oxygen concentrators is that it should be placed in an upright position, 30 centimeters away from the wall and 15 centimeters from the ground. And this is to make sure that there is good air circulation and to prevent overheating of the concentrator. Because if there's no good air, like if there's poor air circulation, there'll be no cool air to cool the concentrator down. So it will be the same hot air circulating, which contributes to overheating of the concentrator. The user is also required to connect the concentrator directly to the wall socket as it draws a lot of power to function. So do not use an extension cord because the extension cords might heat up or they might burn and things like that. The other task that is supposed to be done by the user is cleaning, and this entails cleaning the exterior. So when you're cleaning the concentrator, the user must make sure that the oxygen concentrator is turned off and unplugged from the wall socket. Be careful not to get any water onto the filters when cleaning, as this might introduce moisture inside the concentrator, which might get to the sieve beds. And do not switch on the concentrator unless it is fully dried. The user must also clean the gross particle filter after every 2 weeks or more, frequently in dusty environments. So the gross particle filter is washable, and so you can just soak it or wash it in soapy water, rinse it with clean water, and then air dry it afterwards. And then when you're cleaning the gross particle filter, if you have a spare filter, it's always best to place that one on the concentrator while the other one is drying. Or if you do not have a spare filter, you can put a gauze. Yeah. So the user also has the responsibility of cleaning the humidifier bottle at least once a week and after every patient to reduce risk of infection. The humidifier bottles should be washed inside and out with soapy water and rinsed with a disinfectant. Also, disconnecting the air input pipe and pouring some warm water through it in order to remove any salts that might have started to develop inside the pipe. If the pipe's outlet is obstructed, the user needs to use a sharp needle to unblock the pipe's airways. The user also has the responsibility of replacing distilled water in the humidifier bottle. But if they're using tap water, it is recommended to replace the water every day. The user must store the oxygen concentrator and other accessories that are used with it in a good and dry place. Another responsibility for the user is that they must avoid smoking or having an open flame near the oxygen concentrator. Oxygen supports combustion and risks the start of a fire. So failure to observe this warning can result in severe fire, property damage, damage to oxygen concentrator, and physical damage or even death. So even a small increase in oxygen in the air, like starting from 24%, can create a fire hazard. So in these oxygen enriched environments, materials become easier to ignite and fires will burn hotter and more fiercely than in normal air. So it's not only up to the users, like the healthcare workers, they must also ensure that the patients and the guardians are observing this warning. And this is also something that technicians must observe when they're working with the concentrators. So the technicians themselves also have responsibilities. And these technicians can perform all these functions done by the user, but because they are people who are more knowledgeable in the equipment than the user, they have some other responsibilities. So some of the responsibilities of a technician include making sure that all components are present and securely fastened and verifying that each screw is in place. So for example, to avoid leaks, that's why you like make sure that everything is securely fastened. Another responsibility is to check that all tubes and connectors are in place and are in the right place to avoid wrong connections, which might, for example, affect the oxygen purity or functioning of the concentrator. A technician must conduct user training to ensure safe and efficient use of oxygen concentrators. This is something that has been talked about a lot when Linda was answering your question. So some of the things that you can do when you can talk about during user trainings is the users must pay attention to LEDs and alarms so that they know what they are and they know when to notify the technician. They must know how to clean filters and how or how to replace them. Like in some cases, users will replace a cross particle filter with a mattress, which is wrong. But if you conduct user trainings, you can teach them and let them know so that they do not make these mistakes. So for the users to carry out their responsibilities, they must be aware of what these responsibilities are. So as a technician, it is your duty to ensure that these responsibilities are carried out and that we sensitize them. Another responsibility for a technician is recording the number of run hours and taking note of them, because some parts of a concentrator needs to be serviced after certain hours. For example, compressors. So another responsibility for technicians is measuring purity. A concentrator loses purity when it operates for a longer period of time. And in order to prevent delivering the patient oxygen that is of lesser purity, the concentrator's purity must be tested by the technician at regular intervals. And this is because it could drop at any time for a variety of reasons. For example, contaminated zeolite, or when the compressor needs servicing, or leakages and things like that. So the technician must make sure the flow meter is set to the highest capacity when it was intended for. For example, if it's a 5 liter per minute oxygen concentrator, it must be set to 5 liters. If it's an 8 liters concentrator, 8 liters per minute oxygen concentrator, it must be set to 8 liters per minute while assessing the purity, because doing so ensures that the concentrator performs well at all conditions. The World Health Organization states that the purity level must be above 82%, although we suggest keeping the purity levels at above 85%. So the technician also has the responsibility of checking the patient's outlet pressure. Most concentrators have their output pressure set to anywhere between 7 and 10 psi, with some versions having it set to 20 psi. Because flow meters are made to function at a specific pressure, you receive the incorrect flow measurements when the pressure goes too low or it's too high. And because the concentrator emits more air than the sieve bed produces, when the pressure is too high, the purity will decrease. So the compressor or the sieve beds will change the patient outlet pressure. For example, if the compressor caps and sleeves wear out, so they don't produce the same amount of air or enough air or pressure, and in that case, the output pressure will drop. Or sometimes, if your sieve beds are contaminated or the moisture coding and the zeolite clamps, they get clogged and there's pressure buildup in the sieve beds, and then that leads to a high output pressure. So another task for technicians is to check the compressor. Because when the compressor is functioning, the compressor makes some noise, and the noise generated is often constant. So a compressor will begin to make a loud squeaky sound, after running for a while. And the technician has to get the compressor serviced as soon as he or she hears a change in the sound or the squeaky sound appears. Finally, the technician has to review the alarm system, and he or she must pay attention to the warnings and status LEDs of an oxygen concentrator. So all these things I've mentioned are some of the things that you must do when taking care of an oxygen concentrator, and the responsibilities and roles that different persons have while using an oxygen concentrator. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Daphne, for that broad, detailed explanation. So we have a question in the chat, and the question says, I'm Hadia Ali from Zanzibar. Can we remove a filter while the concentrator is working for cleaning? So Daphne, a question for you.
Yes, you can remove the filter while the concentrator is working. Just make sure that you replace if you have a spare, or you can just take gauze and wrap it maybe once or twice or three times and then put it there so that you can continue using the concentrator while the one you're cleaning is drying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daphne, for that explanation. And I think we have a reply from Hadia. So reaching this far, I'll hand it over to Maui.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sharon. So we'll get back to our questions, so we have a question here, and before I send the question to one of our technicians, I will just ask the audience or any member of the audience to try and give us their view on this. So the question says, I am a technician working for an oxygen concentrator supplier in South Africa. We received a concentrator with reported power failure alarm. Alarms whilst running, but the screen shows normal operation. So when we switch the device off from the socket outlets, the power failure alarm stops. What could be the cause? So whoever has a response to this, you can either just type it in the chat and I'll read it out, or you can come off mute and then give us your view on this. So how would you go about solving this problem? So they're saying that their concentrator, when it's on, it's running, the alarm beeps, but when they switch it off, the power failure alarm goes off. So how can we solve this one? So any member of the audience is welcome to do so. We have also pasted the question in the chat in case you need further clarification on that one. Hadia, do you want to try this one out? Okay. George, do you want to try and give this a shot? All right, so we have a question in the chat. Do we know the model of the concentrator? Unfortunately, we weren't told what model of concentrator we are dealing with here. But then for most of the concentrator, I think the normal behavior would be that when you unplug it from the socket and the power switch is still on the on position, it's supposed to alarm. All right, so I guess I'll just pass it to one of our... Okay, so we have a response in the chat from Jerry. So he says, I believe the alarm is powered by an internal battery. Yeah, so this is true. So for some of the concentrators, they have a battery, and some models use a capacitor on the control board. So it's either a battery or a capacitor. So he's saying it's possible that the battery is dead. Yeah. All right. So Paulina, can you please give us a well-detailed explanation on this so that our friend can be helped here?
Okay, thanks, Mark. In many cases, we find that there is a shortage of power to keep the normally closed line on the on and off switch open. So remember, the on and off switch consists of two lines, and the line for the power off alarm only closes when there is a power cut to notify the patient that the machine is not running. So if the machine is running normally with the power off alarm, and it shows that there is a power problem, you will then need to check if you have, the first thing that you would need to check, you would check if your on and off switch is working properly. So to check if the switch is faulty or working properly, you need to install another switch, or you can use a continuity meter with a switch placed in an I position. Place the on position. Trace connections which are supposed to be continuous when the switch is in the open position. If there's no continuity between one or more connections, the switch is faulty and needs to be replaced. Secondly, it could be a loose connection. So you'd need to use your multimeter to check for continuity on the power cord, check the live wire and also the neutral wire. Thirdly, you would need to check the voltage on the incoming point of the power cord to see if you get the correct voltage, which is 230 plus minus 10% tolerance. Another thing that you need to check is for the continuity on the PC board fuse. So if there is no continuity there, then you would need to replace the fuse. Also check for visible loose connections or cuts on your power cord or any wires inside the machine. If cuts are detected on the power cord or any wires, then you would need to join them. You would need to cut and join them properly using a soldering equipment or replace the whole power cord. So in most cases, when we've received machines with this problem, the problem was with the PC board fuse. The fuse was dead, but the alarm would work still. Thank you, Mabi.
Thank you very much, Paulina, for that response. So that's how you can get around that problem. So if you see that you're having a similar issue, just try out one of these solutions. So it's very important to make sure that our power switch is in perfect working condition. Because I remember there was a time where I encountered a concentrator where someone was trying to fix it, and then I think they accidentally placed the connections on the power switch wrongly, and then they ended up damaging the control board. So making sure that our power switch is in perfect working condition is very important, as that might affect the functionality of everything in our concentrator. All right, so moving on with our questions. So our next question says, I have a damaged product regulator for an airsafe intensity oxygen concentrator for a male ward at our community hospital. I do not have a spare airsafe model product regulator. Instead, I have a generic pressure regulator that I could use on the concentrator. Is it okay if I use the generic pressure regulator? So I will ask Francis to respond to this question.
Thank you, Maui. So when retrofitting a component, one must always check the specifications of the other component, that is the original component, to confirm if the component, that is the generic component, has the same specs and that it will work on the equipment. In this case, for the ASF model pressure regulator, it has a maximum PSIAG rating of 300 on the inlet side, and it can reduce this pressure of 300 psi to a range of 5 to 100 psig. So you should make sure that the generic pressure regulator you would like to use also has similar specifications. The challenge with using the generic pressure regulator would be the fittings. Most generic pressure regulators come with a 1/4 inch female inlet NPT and 1/4 inch female NPT outlet, and also they also have a 1/8 inch female NPT connection for the pressure gauge. As you can see in the graphics, we have the pressure gauge mounted on the pressure regulator, the generic pressure regulator. Since the pressure regulator won't be necessary it can be closed with a 1/8-inch hex plug on the inlet side. You can close that with the 1/8-inch hex plug, and on the inlet side you will need a 1/4-inch male NPT to 1/8-inch female NPT reducer, and on the outlet side you need a 1/4-inch male NPT to 3/16 bulb elbow, as that's where you will connect your pipe tubing. So you need the elbow brass fitting to prevent kinks in the pipe tubing. After putting everything together, it should look like the pictures we have in the graphics. So as we can see in the graphics, we don't have the pressure regulator anymore. We've closed it with the 1/8-inch hex plug, and then we have the male to female reducer on the other side, and also the male to bulb reducer elbow on the other side where we'll connect our pipe. Yeah, so you can easily tighten this on the product tank of the air sub intensity. So you have to tighten in order to also make sure that you don't have leaks. So you can also use a thread tape on there. And then what is left for you to do would be to regulate the pressure to the recommended range, which is 138 psig, for you to be able to use the oxygen concentrator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis, for that explanation. That was well detailed. In case we have some questions or comments from the audience, we are free to do so. And just a comment from me, as Amaprit keeps saying, that we, as the Oxygen Alliance, we're always willing to help you out with all parts that you are having trouble to access. So this solution will work for you, but if you want the right type of regulator, then you can always contact us and we'll help you out with sourcing this, the right pressure regulators. Right, so it seems we do not have any questions here. And looking at our time, I think our clock is running down. We had one more question, but we are going to keep that for our next session. So I would like to we'll stop here, and I would like to thank you all for joining us for the call today. Today I wasn't alone. I was with my colleague, Sharon Ngozo. Thank you very much, Sharon, for joining me today. At least I had some company, so please join me again when you find the time. I know you are a very busy person. You're always in the field trying to fix oxygen concentrators, but next time you have this chance, you are very welcome to join me on the call. Maybe I should give you the call to host one of these days, yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. So we'll be here again next week, same time, 2 p.m. Central African time, so please join us. In case it's your first time joining us and you have missed a couple of our previous sessions, yeah, we have a YouTube channel where we post all these recordings of our call. So you just go on YouTube, search for Oxygen Alliance, and you should be able to access those recordings. We also have a website, so the website has more detailed content about all the activities that go on around with the Oxygen Alliance. So please check it out also. So reaching this far, I don't know if you have any comments, Sharon, before we wind up.
No comment.
All right, great. So we'll see you again in our next Concentrator Talk call. Bye.